Our sponsors for this episode are Hall's Tree Service. Locally owned and operated, Hall's Tree Service has been exceeding and surpassing customer demands in Newton and the surrounding area for over 40 years. Larry and his crew are guaranteed to work hard for you. There's no tree too tall, no job too small. Call Hall's at 316-772-1919. Absolute drain. Look, no one, and I mean no one, likes it when their sink, bathtub, washing machine, or especially their toilets start backing up. It's even worse when they won't drain or flush at all. No matter who you are, it happens to us all. If this is happening to you, then you need to give Garth with Absolute Drain a call. Absolute Drain is located at 420 West Broadway in Newton and has been faithfully serving Newton and surrounding areas for longer than I can even remember. I personally use Absolute Drain, and they have kept my pipes cleaned out and flowing day one. It might just be time for you to give them a call too at 316-283-7264. The Newton Kansan is Newton's longest-running local newspaper covering all the stories, people, places, and things happening in our community. Chad Fry, the Kansan guy, editor of the Kansan, works diligently to ensure integrity, accuracy, and unbiased news is delivered to your doorstep 3 times a week for an unbeatable price. You can also sign up for online-only access for around $7 a month. That's 12 online papers a month for only $7. If you've not subscribed, it's time you do. Visit them in their office at 517 North Main Street. That's 517 North Main Street in Newton. Online at thekansan.com. That's thekansan.com. Or give them a call at 316-283-1500. That's 316-283-1500. Support local journalism, support the Kansan. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this HCTalk podcast. As always, I'm your host, Lance Gormley, and my ride or die, my co-partner in crime, Chad Fry, the Kansan guy, is here to discuss all things local, and maybe we'll throw in a national topic, just one possibly.
We'll see.
Okay.
Let's see where the conversation goes today.
Well, there's been a lot that's going on here recently as far as what's local, what's going on locally. I'll tell you, one of the things that I've really been paying close attention to is the argument for or against the bond. And it's getting a little bit interesting, Chad. I'll just say that.
Well, and it was made a little more interesting this week because of the student walkout. And quite honestly, a whole bunch of adults who got all their panties up in a bunch over a student walkout. And I really don't have a whole lot of tolerance for those folks. Now, if you want to get upset, and you want my honest to God opinion, here it is. If you want to get upset about the shit show it became once Chisholm Middle School showed up, go be upset. I'm fine with that.
Okay, so then let's do this.
But at the same time, every one of those students has the right to free speech. They do not have the right to free speech without consequences. And the school district did announce consequences for every one of the children that decided to participate in this. Well, and if you were there and you were a student, you are a child. So don't take issue with or umbrage with my language. Right.
Well, and then and just to discuss this briefly, I did hear that they were going to do a walkout.
Yep.
In the past, there have been protests that students choose to participate in. It is what it is, right? They have the right to.
The most recent large-scale walkout / protest from in Newton schools was in 2018, and there was about 200 kids that were involved in that, all from Newton High School. They never even left campus. Just throwing it out there. They never left campus, and I don't remember such a social media uproar over that one, but there probably was.
Well, there was no pending bond issue that was...
there's that, too.
You know, I mean, I'll just say this. Red herring arguments all the way around. I mean, like I said, I've been an observer,
we got some very talented herring fishermen in our town, don't we?
Yes, we do. I thought it was kind of interesting because I saw a lot of people hanging that hat on the school district. But the school district actually put out a mass email.
Yes, they did.
That said
all parents and all families received it on Thursday.
Yeah, to say this was not a school-sponsored event.
It is not a school-sponsored event. They also were very clear. There were a couple of things that they made very clear. And I can say this because I are one. You parents that did not take the opportunity, I took it, to talk to your kids about this stuff. You failed because you had ample time and warning. And there are 3 key things that the school district told you in your email. Okay? You just mentioned one of them, that it's not a school-sanctioned event.
Well, there'll be consequences, too. You'll get an unexcused
Correct.
absence.
They also laid out what the disciplinary action that the school district was going to take, which was unexcused absence.
So, and I thought that was good. I appreciated that communication blip through USD 373. I will say that what can the school actually do if a child decides or a student decides, well, I'm skipping class today? Fill in the blank, whatever that is. I'm going to go to McDonald's. I'm going to go get a coffee.
It really is quite situational. It's very situational. But just straight up, I've sat in the juvenile intake room with kids that have literally ran out of school. Okay? And they were treated as a runaway. And just so you all know what that means that they're taken to a juvenile intake office. They are offered the opportunity to go through a mental health screener. And about an hour and a half of paperwork gets done. And I usually try and get that done within about 30 minutes because I am who I am. I don't sit still. And then we call parents. Parents come, pick them up, take them home. That's it. That's the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah.
A runaway cannot be detained. A runaway cannot be placed in a detentionary placement. That's according to state statute.
Well, and I think Newton schools take seriously
and truancy, because I've seen truancy coming up a lot.
They've
week.
Changed a little bit on, yeah. Well, we're getting in far enough into the school year where people have accumulated enough tardies or absences, unexcused absences, to where then that meets the threshold of, hey, now you're considered truant.
Do you know that there is a statute that defines truancy?
So many unexcused absences.
3 full days. Not a class period. 3 full days. And then contact is going to be made with you as a parent, and they're going to figure out, did you know about this? And if you knew about it, they're probably going to remove the truancy. There hasn't been a truancy hearing in this county in I don't know how long.
Now, they do send out letters. I think the Harvey County prosecutor wants to ensure that children are making,
the last couple of years they've been trying to button up truancy. But again, I mean, you made mention of red herring arguments. All those folks out there on social media talking about how the kid is truant because they're not in school. That's not necessarily the case, because there's a legal definition to deal with.
Well, and not only this, but I'll go back to this. USD 373 Newton Schools, I believe, has the best interest of our children at heart. And when we're talking about that, there's only so much that they can do. Like you mentioned, if you have a student that decides, I'm not going to school today, I'm going to do whatever I want. They know that, well, if this student is not at school, that's a lot of idle time, for these youngsters to be doing things throughout the day without sometimes parental supervision, without adult supervision. And that gets scary in today's society, because that often leads to sitting in front of Chad.
Yeah. And the other thing that was in that email that I think is really important to point out, I mentioned that there were 3 really important things. Here's the third one. The language that they used was that the district cannot ensure the safety of a student who leaves campus. There was nobody from the school district anywhere near downtown unless they were just driving through.
But how does some people,
honestly, it's not their responsibility.
Yeah. But I saw on social media that there was actually quite a few people that wanted to lay the responsibility at the feet of the district. But legally, now here's the red herring, right? Legally, there's nothing the district can do about it. if a child or a student wants to go and exercise their First Amendment right to free speech, to do a walkout, to go protest something that they feel is wrong or that they should be out there protesting, which is right in their minds, regardless of the issue, regardless of whether it's a Republican issue or a Democrat issue or whatever issue, the school district cannot go infringe upon those individuals' rights to free speech. It's a First Amendment protected right. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. And the unfortunate circumstance for some of that event on Monday is that, I hate the way I worded that, but it's just this is the truth, that everybody has that right. So if it was your daughter who didn't want me taking her picture, I have every right to do so.
Well, what's crazy about that is anybody would say anything given that you were...
And oh, by the way, when the district made that statement that they cannot ensure the safety, you know what else that meant? That meant that all of those things that you signed at the beginning of the year, all those media release forms and all that stuff, they don't apply to this.
Yeah, because they're doing it outside of the district's approval.
It's not a sanctioned school district event, and a good portion of this, where they decided to make the most noise, was in freaking public, on public sidewalks, on the courthouse lawn. They are in public. There is no presumption of privacy of any kind. And that means any person, for any reason, could have been out there taking pictures, video, whatever they wanted. And I'm not going to get all gross and really spell it out for you.
Well, let your mind wander.
But let your mind wander with any person who wanted to. So when I'm being verbally accosted because I'm taking video of kids, it's my freaking job. That's my job.
Well, not only this, but I don't know what fully happened because it sounds like you might have got some pushback.
Oh,
Chad,
and I had a kid say something that was not only vile, but actually criminal.
To you?
To me.
While you're there reporting?
Directly to me.
And what sense does this make? Okay, because generally speaking, if you are doing something, some kind of media coverage, especially for a walkout or a protest of some sort, is beneficial or could potentially be beneficial to your cause, because what is happening is you're getting a microphone for whatever it is that you're doing through media versus not having that.
And just, and
so you would think that they'd be like, oh, here's the media person.
And here's the difference in some of the groups that were out there. So because I want to play nice in the sandbox with not only the kids that were out there, but school administration, there's some policies about doing interviews on school property. Okay? And so I waited. And I waited on the high school kids who were walking. Okay? And by the way, for those of you who want to, say, well, they just wanted to do was go home for the day. Do you have any idea the commitment it takes to make your sign, walk out of the school, and hope to God that when you walk past the Newton police officer that's posted at the school, he's not going to make an issue of it. And by the way, they're not. Just so you know, they won't. And then go walk more than a mile to get where you're going to actually start making your statement. That's commitment. So don't give me that all they wanted to do was go home. Did I talk to a high schooler who said, all I'm doing is going home, man, I'm just going to go to bed? Yes, I did. Did I talk to a 7th grader who I know who said, I don't know why I'm here? Somebody handed me a sign and said, come with us. Yes, I did. But I also talked to kids that were committed to this. Truly. And they demonstrated it not only by what they said to me, and I made video of one of them, but through their actions of, I mean, Chisholm Middle School that's a 1.5 mile walk to the courthouse. And so that was that's part of the deal. The difference in some of the groups is this. That group that was on 12th Street, I took a couple of pictures. I didn't take any video of that group that was walking. I just took some pictures. And I was standing there, and I made sure that I was wearing something to identify myself as media. Okay? I'm not going to play gotcha media with anybody, especially a school kid.
Kiddos, yeah.
So I've identified myself as media, and I stood on that sidewalk, and I said, I'm the only member of the media who is here. Is there anybody who would like to talk to me? And a sophomore stepped right up and said, yeah, I will. Can I make a video? Yes, you can. And we talked. And I quoted him. Kudos to you, young man.
Yeah.
When I started to approach another group from Chisholm, they just started swearing at me. I lost count of the number of F-bombs. And I was just like, why are you swearing at me? I'm the one who can amplify you to another audience, not just the people driving by. Do not swear at me. And almost every interaction, except for the kid that I actually knew through my son's social circles, that was just walking because somebody handed him a sign, everybody else was beyond rude, beyond insulting. They were just mad at the world, and they didn't care who they took it out on.
Well, and that's very unfortunate.
It's incredibly unfortunate.
And I'll go back to this. Equally so, okay, and I'm not making any excuses for any adolescent youth who are going to protest something that they're passionate about, so that probably the foundation of that is kind of a frustration in general, frustration with the way things are going. And then you throw in, some other people that are also frustrated and also angry about what's going on. And then that just kind of sets the whole tone of it, right? So not making any excuses for what transpired, not making any excuses for anything that happened to you, but looking at it from a third person perspective and saying, I'm just an observer here, that first, we've already covered they're going out and they're exercising their First Amendment free speech protected right, which they can do. We've covered what the school district can and can't do. And then you get into reading some of what was over the social media threads, and there were adults that were completely against what these youth were doing, that were acting in a way that was even the same or worse than what you're talking about, Chad. And I got to go here, okay? I don't really like to use the word tolerance because that's a trigger word for people, okay? But the reality is, when I say tolerance, what I mean is, if I've got the right to drive a car, so does Chad. If I have the right to bear arms, so does Chad. If I have the right to protest for what I believe I should be protesting for, so does Chad. It doesn't matter whether or not Chad agrees with me. We could be on completely opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to what we are advocating for or against, but we equally both have that right. Am I wrong? I believe in protecting your right to free speech, even if it is against what I believe, because I want my right of free speech protected when it's against what you believe.
And that right there is the crux of one of the major problems we have in the United States today. Okay? So, if you don't believe the kids had the right to be out there, I'm going to challenge and push back at you. And I'm going to tell you, you've got some homework right now.
But they don't care, Chad.
I don't care that they don't care. You want to come talk to me? I'm going to start asking questions. That's what I do. That's my job. If you have not read the Bill of Rights, go read it. Because I am going to ask you, you show me in the Bill of Rights, let's get real specific. Show me in the First Amendment, because that's the one that keeps coming up with this conversation. Show me in the First Amendment where it excludes those children. Show me in the First Amendment where it would exclude me or you or anyone.
For any reason.
It does not. And because of that, you have absolutely every right to have been standing on the other side of the street, screaming and yelling at them.
And there was some of that was going on.
And yes, there was. There was a pickup with a couple of, I will say, high school aged youth, but because I have not confirmed any of the ages, that were out there riling people up. And they were saying some very vile things. And I've had people who have apologized to me on behalf of those children. By the way, I don't need your apology. There is only one human being that I need an apology from. And it's one of those children. I kind of lost my train of thought, but you have that right to stand out there. But don't cross the lines.
Well, and then let's go back to this, okay?
If it devolves into threats, that's illegal. That's why I need an apology from someone. When it devolves into a threat, a physical or emotional threat, we got a problem.
And I don't know if we've already, I've oftentimes wondered whether or not we've just completely blown past people's ability to have open dialogue with one another and to communicate in a respectful and cordial manner with one another in this country. I mean, it's not.
And
it's
by
not,
the way,
it's not about what I believe anymore. It's not that I passionately believe in what I believe in, and I'm going to go out here and I'm going to do everything I can to advocate for something because I believe in it. It's I'm going to come out here and advocate against what you're doing, right? It's okay. Just let's move into this, right?
Well, just one last thing here. Obviously, this was not my first go around with some kind of a protest. And I've actually participated in a peaceful protest that was, by all accounts, peaceful from start to finish. So I know what that looks like. And I know what it looks like to be physically challenged. Truly. And to not allow that from continuing to peacefully protest. Denver, Colorado, Capitol building. We were protesting the very first Iraq war. And when you've got a police officer with a canine standing right across from you, looking at you going, I can't officially say it. I just wish you guys would go home so I could. I don't need to be here. There's no point in me being here, but I'm here for orders. And I'm looking at him going, well, what do you mean you don't need to be here? It's like, you guys aren't out of control.
But it doesn't take but just a few agitators, Chad.
And then for a guy to just step up kind of right next to me in a red jacket. I'll never forget this guy. And I actually carried his name in my billfold until about 3 years ago. He says, I wish you sons of bitches would go home. You have no idea how insulting this is to me. Why am I this insulting to you? I'm a Marine. I'm going to be heading over. Oh. Well, that's the real brass tacks. You know, I don't have a quarrel with you, sir. Never have, never will. I got a quarrel with some of the idiots in Washington who are sending you over there. And that being enough of a trigger for him to punch me in the middle of the chest. And now you've got police officer, he's getting ready. And I just turned to the officer and went, no. Ain't nothing going on here. I got punched in the chest by a full-blown Marine. And my response was, dude, I need your name. I need to write it down and put it in my billfold so I can pray for you every day you're gone. I want to make sure you get back here safe. Folks, that's peaceful protest. That's how that works. But lashing out, whether it's verbally or physically, on anybody that just happens to be in your way, that is not peaceful protest.
Well, let's go down here. Okay, so we can transfer over into. I wanted to cover some about the bond because it is coming up quick. But
and you mentioned bond, so I'll even I'll let you. We'll transition right now and right here.
Well, before we do that, I want to say something real quick, Chad. Okay, so to wrap all this up, what I'm seeing is that there's once again a lack of humanization of somebody on the other behalf. I bet that, and I'm going to assume that that the mass majority of those youth and students that stepped out in protest are dissatisfied with what ICE is doing, dissatisfied with the handling of the administration when it comes to ICE and in deportations and what's going on. Then the higher-arching thing would be they're just dissatisfied with this administration and they have political viewpoints that are in contrast to this administration. There is nothing wrong with this.
Nothing wrong with it.
And the reason why there's nothing wrong with this is because you're somebody that can sit back and say, well, it wasn't too many years ago. If you're on the opposite side of the fence of that, and you are for this administration, and you are for what's going on with ICE, and you're for the administration's handling of ICE, okay, then that most likely means that there have been administrations in the past which you are against what they're doing, against the president, against the handling of whatever situation happens to be there. And I think, and maybe I'm talking on deaf ears, is what I'm saying is falling on deaf ears, and the older I get and the more that I do this, I pessimistically would say that it is the case that much of what somebody else thinks, feels about a certain topic falls on deaf ears for somebody else that's already previously in disagreement with it. So not to get too long-winded on here in this wrap-up before we transition over, is, you know, I would be interested in why those individuals believe and feel and think the way they do. And to be completely honest, even though I may disagree with them on some of those things, I may agree with them on some of those things, they're not just an idiot. They're a person that you may believe is misguided. They might be somebody that you think doesn't have all the facts. There might be somebody that, you know, you think may be listening to the wrong information or getting their information from the wrong place. But you've got to consider that they themselves too will look at you the same way.
There's
two sides to every coin.
There is. If I can encourage you to start thinking along these lines, I think it will help you. I'm not talking specifically to you, Lance, right? I'm talking to...
Hey, me too. You know?
Those kids that were out there protesting have an idea of what is best for our country. It just might be different than yours.
And their minds may change and evolve over time.
Had this protest happened 2.5 years ago in the Biden administration, some of you that are so angry right now wouldn't be angry. And we know that to be true. Okay? Because they would have been supporting your vision for a better United States.
Yeah, so they have all the right. Yeah.
So just take a breath. And you know, this is almost a universal truth for our politics today. That person that's on the other side of the aisle, which for now, the better part of 20 years, both sides of the aisle, they are encouraging you to look at the other side of the aisle and see them as your enemy.
Yeah,
they are not your enemy.
Yeah,
they are your neighbor. And they are your neighbor that has a different vision of what makes this country great.
No, they're the enemy.
A different vision of how to get there.
They're everything that's wrong with society right now. They are the reason why I'm in a situation that I'm in. It has nothing to do with me. There's no personal accountability here. Okay. So moving into this, okay, social media and some of the things that were been said on social media, even about this protest, can transfer over into the bond issue.
Sure, because you've got people saying they don't want to vote for the bond issue because of the actions of a minority number of students.
And that is a red herring argument. And here's an education for somebody that's listening right now. If you don't know what a red herring fallacy is, a red herring is a logical fallacy diversionary tactic that introduces irrelevant information to distract from the original issue or argument. It is used to shift focus onto a new, often easier to argue topic, effectively derailing the original discussion. This technique is common in politics, advertising, and everyday debates. Definition: a deliberate, misleading distraction from the main argument, named after the historical practice of using strong-smelling fish to divert hunting grounds. The purpose is to abandon the original argument and steer the audience towards a different, irrelevant, or less important topic. One example is, when asked about a budget deficit, a politician instead talks about an opponent's personal life. So instead of talking about advocating for or against whether or not an individual should vote for this bond or not, is not based upon the issue itself. It's based upon all of these other issues that you throw at it where people are upset. Like, for instance, test scores. Test scores don't really have a lot to do with bond. Here's this. This is how I look at it. I was going to write. And
I've got a statement about the test scores. You've already heard it today. But let's just, again, we need to take breaths, folks. So is some of the information going out there about, quite honestly, piss poor test scores in our Newton district accurate? Yeah. Is it incomplete? Yeah. Did I see any of the people that have been circulating those at the school board meeting on Monday night for the hour-long discussion with the Board of Education about what actual programs and teaching techniques are being put into place to respond to that? No.
Didn't we ditch Common Core? Not to go off on a side here, but I thought it was a while back that we decided as a district that we were no longer going to employ Common Core as a curriculum in our school. Is that a correct statement?
Put your herring back on its leash.
I'm just saying, because I see comments about that. It's like people that are just like, this social media argument has just devolved itself down into the most ignorant. You got people on there that are talking about the city of Newton mismanaging their money. What does the city of Newton have to do with the school bond? It doesn't.
Nothing.
What does, I mean, I go back to this. Yes. Okay. Test scores are less than to be desired, not only in Newton, but everywhere. So
that is true.
So why is it that we want to defund education when there could be an argument to be made into, well, we've consistently tried to defund education in the state of Kansas at the legislative level on so many
that's
instances.
Been going on for more than decades.
The Supreme Court had to actually step in and rule that there's not enough funding per pupil that the state legislature has put forth. This was years ago. And then now we're back into this. Well, we just want to defund education. We want to defund education.
I'm tired of the silent war on families that has been waged by our state legislature. And oh yeah. You ever want to see me really go off? Give me license to do it and bring up the silent war on families that's been waged by our legislature. And folks, it goes back decades. And all you need to know right now in this moment, is if you don't believe that exists, go take a look at what they've been doing with lunch programs in our legislature.
You know what, Chad? I'm being sarcastic.
They've been sticking their noses in places they don't belong. And in the world of education in this state, the legislature has been sticking their nose into a whole hell of a lot of places it doesn't belong. And all you got to do to understand that is actually read Article 6 of the Kansas Constitution, which sets up all of the responsibilities for everyone surrounding public education.
I'm being sarcastic when I say this.
I'm done with that conversation for right now.
I'm being sarcastic when I say this, but you know what? When it comes to school lunches, Chad, we should just feed every child a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with a bag of Lay's potato chips and one little carton of whole milk, because that's all they deserve and that's all they need. And then for those that can't have peanut butter and jelly, we should give them a slice of cheese on some bread. Because that's all we should do. Because test scores are down.
Let's talk about the test score thing.
I mean, doesn't that make sense? Test scores are down, Chad?
That's been one of my...
Why feed them if they can't make good grades?
It's one of my big frustrations in this particular bond issue. And the last one. Well, the last unsuccessful one. Is it accurate that the test scores are in the tank? Yeah. By the way, they were going in the tank out at Walton, too, before we closed it. Just throwing that out there, you know?
No, that's not true.
Yeah. I mean, go back. It's very
that was the
true.
Best school in the whole state, Chad.
It may have been a great school, but its test scores were slipping.
And so great a curriculum that they wouldn't do what they could do to try to employ that same curriculum into the. I
digress. We digress.
Yeah, we got to go back to the school bond. We can't get lost.
But
here.
when you start talking about test scores, okay, let me ask: what do we do to change that? What do we do, and what do we need? And we can't find, because there will not be one magic bullet for that. We have to take a look at everything. We have to not only take a look at the curriculum that's being taught, but how it's being taught, which is, oh, by the way, what I heard more than an hour of the other night. And Joe, I love you, man. I love you. But I'll be honest, I got bored. But anyway, that's what we were hearing. We were hearing about professional learning communities. We were hearing about how they're using that to rewrite curriculum, write curriculum, evaluate how we're teaching, everything. Okay? We have a pilot project that's going to be launching here very shortly over at my favorite school, Chisholm Middle School, which is, if it's successful, and by the way, it's expensive, will change the way we teach reading. And it's proven to have been successful in other places. But we have to do this because we're talking about test scores. We're talking about improving test scores. Now, granted, we're not talking about actually improving the mastery of a subject. We're talking about making sure that they can sit down and fill in the little circles and make sure that it scores pretty good. Okay? That's what we're talking about. So if we need to improve test scores, we absolutely have to tear it all apart. We have to tear apart the curriculum, how it's being taught, who's teaching it, what tools we're giving the teachers. Okay, so does this curriculum work on a Chromebook or not? Is that the best way to deliver it or not? Is it paper and pencil? Great. Then let's figure out how to do that. Equipment. You know what else we got to figure out? Facilities. because the facilities that these kids are in does play a role. So, folks, because facilities does play a role, the test scores we're getting in the facilities that we're trying to improve. Tell me again we need to vote against the bond issue because of test scores. I am going to tell you we need to vote for the bond issue because of test scores. Because those scores are being generated in these buildings that need repair.
Well, and I want to push back on this, Chad. Okay, to me, my opinion, it's a moot point. Okay,
It's that too.
It's not. Doing this bond is not going to increase test scores any more than this. My opinion. This is my opinion.
Let me add a little note on that, because you're right. Because guess what? The kids that are scoring that way at the high school, they're not going to see any of this work done.
Correct. And that's another thing, right? So
we're mad at the Chisholm Middle School kids because they went walking on the street for an hour and a half or 2 hours on Monday. Great, wonderful. We're not gonna give them a new air conditioner because of it. Well, guess what?
Oh, so you're saying that if you don't agree with my political beliefs and ideologies, that somehow or another.
Well,
okay,
what I'm saying
ask,
is that air conditioner at Chisholm isn't for those kids.
Is the National Day of Prayer that's recognized?
It's for the kids that are in elementary school right now.
I got a question, Chad. Is the National Day of Prayer that's recognized? Well, I guess maybe that doesn't happen during school hours. I'm just saying. I wonder what other non-sanctioned school events that people participate in that takes away from the day-to-day that may or may not be considered an unexcused absence that people would be for, that would just stop their argument on its at a dime. It's okay. So it's back to what I was saying.
Well,
right?
I mean, it depends on what your concern is. Is your concern really that they're missing school? Is that it?
No, it's because they're doing something that you don't believe politically ideology. That's what it is.
That's why you're upset.
That's why people are upset, because
that's why you're upset.
Say it.
But I'm asking, what are you telling me? Okay? If you're couching this that you're upset it's because they're missing school, then doggone it, we better be shutting down our football team. And we better get rid of the golf team, and we better get rid of... You want me to keep going? We better get rid of middle school band. You know where middle school band is today? Not in school.
I think it comes down to politics. It comes down to the fact that if somebody was there and they were out having a peaceful protest against, we'll just say, okay. So going back to what I was saying.
It is what it is.
Yes.
But when it comes to the bond issue, those are things, and I know you think I'm crazy, but test scores have absolutely nothing to do with a school bond. Oh, and by the way, that $50 million, and it sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, that they are asking for, they can only ask for it for capital improvement. They can't pay teacher salaries with it. They can't give my favorite teacher a raise. It's illegal to do that. They cannot borrow money for teacher salaries. Period. End of story. And if you're one of those lucky people that is not going to have to borrow money when you put a new roof on your house and it's not storm related and there is no insurance, and you're going to be able to pay cash to Roofing Services Unlimited to come and put a new roof on your house, good for you. The vast majority of the populace has to go to the bank and rewrite their mortgage and borrow money for that. Why is it when you've got to borrow money for that, why is it you look at the school district and say you can't borrow money for that? All of a sudden, the school district has mismanaged funds. By the way, the next person who comes at me with that, here's my question. So you've been reading through the budget every year for the last 20 years?
This is my point when we look at this bond. Okay, this is my point. You know that I am super involved when it comes to our public entities. Okay, I am not the superintendent. I am not in mystery. I mean, I'm trying to juggle, the city and what their budget is and how they've spent their certain things on and whether that would be justified or not justified. But what we have to look at, and the thing that you have to look at, my opinion, Lance's opinion here, okay, that you have to look, an educated opinion, we'll say that. You have to look at what they've spent their money on, okay, and ask yourself, when you get into that documentation, okay, have they mismanaged money they've been given? Have they mismanaged taxpayer dollars in some form or fashion? And then please bring that up. Show me the proof that you believe that somehow or another that this administration or even a previous administration has somehow or another mismanaged finances. When were they given $1 million to put a new roof on and didn't do it? When were they given $1 million to replace HVAC systems and didn't do it? The way it works when it comes to these entities, and we saw the same argument when it came to the library, okay, had to do with the fact that, well, you should have been saving money out to be able to do this. What money? What money?
Because
how are you going to save $50 million over 20 years? Let's just do the simple math here.
A former budget director for the city of Newton made this statement to me because I made a comment about the cash reserves and that it strikes me that local governments could and should be putting more money into cash reserves so that they can be prepared for things, right? In the county's case, they could have been prepared to buy Pine Street, or they could have been prepared for the upcoming $7.5 million investment into the courthouse. The budget director looked at me and said, I would love to do that. But then I will have a steady stream of people walking in here and saying, see, now you're charging taxes that you don't need to be charging.
It's a real tightrope to walk. A lot of people don't understand government budget.
Right. So I was just like, okay, all right, I got you. It's they're exposing the political climate and mindset. Right?
You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
So
you don't save any money.
We've been pretty
you're a problem.
Straight up.
You do save money, you're a problem. Right?
Right.
If we go and we start saving money so that way we can not have to take out a certain size or take a loan out every time we need to do one thing or the other, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, you got way too much money. Why do you got all that much money? You're overtaxing us. But then if you don't do that, or you try to find some happy medium in there, or it would be considered best practices, honestly, right? Where they say, hey, you need to have so much money in reserves. This gives you the best credit rating when it comes to wanting to bond things. This gives you the best credit rating when you're wanting to go borrow of any kind. I mean, there's a lot here.
There's a reason that we had to borrow to redo our sewage plant. I mean, this is when we're wading into these waters.
Wasn't it $20 million?
When we're wading into these waters, talking about why that, these organizations are not able to, quote, save it up, end quote, there's a great one. There's a great example right there. Because had the city been squirreling away money on the off chance that they were going to have to do, and honestly, you're going to have to at some point. Crap wears out. I mean, stuff wears out. That's what the school district's dealing with right now. So if they'd have been squirreling away money to redo or rebuild or renovate or build a new sewage treatment plant, that's for a part of the organization where people have been screaming about what they've been getting charged for decades.
But even then, that was outside of the city's control, because if you go back to it, it was a change in policy at the federal government level.
I know.
And they had to comply.
You get my point, right?
How are you going to save money when all of a sudden some outside entity says, hey, you got to do this?
But how do you try when all you're going to get from your populace is, you're already charging me too much? And you're telling me that you want to go up another 5% just so you can put money in the bank in case you need to do some work? No. You're already charging me too much.
Okay, and going back to these arguments, right?
Well, here's the deal.
Doesn't this come back to education in the first place?
Well,
all the same, right?
You've got these people.
Okay, so when you're writing for the mass audience, okay, because for most people that don't know, I'm almost a double master's. One, I have an MPA, and the other one is in communications, and a lot of it has to do with how to distribute information or communicate to the mass public. That's more or less what communication is, okay? And you even told me, and I know this to be true too because I've walked this out and lived this from having to write for the mass audience. You need to keep your language or your writing so that an 8th grader can consume the information. You need to write at an 8th grade level. And there's even been discussion about whether
going down to 6th grade
go down
level.
to 6th grade level. And then you see a lot of these people that are on social media that are arguing, and I'm just going to say it, against the bond. It's red herring after red herring. It's a lot of nonsense. It's very clear that whoever is on the other end of that keyboard is not understand or does not have the education or have not chosen to educate themselves when it comes to a lot of different factors. It's like I've seen things like, well, the city keeps appraising my property higher. Well, the city doesn't appraise your property, okay? The city doesn't have anything to do with property appraisals, okay? Well, they keep raising my taxes. Well, I mean, that's subjective.
They do.
You know, that's subjective.
And I'm glad you went here because here's the deal, dude. When it comes to the bond issue, I've been pretty harsh for the last however many minutes we've been going. I've been pretty harsh. There is a group of people that I have a lot of sympathy for. And honestly, I'm one of them. And it's that group of people that is sitting there going, the city passed a record mill levy increase 3 years ago. The school district didn't do that, but the city did. The county commission passed a mill levy increase just last year. I'm looking at my mortgage statement and my bill and my escrow accounts, and I'm understanding that my taxes and my insurance is now more than my principal payment. And that's a hard place to be stuck. And so now the school district's coming in and saying, we want to raise the mill levy another 4.3. And by the way, I've done the math, and I've done the math on my house, so I know exactly how much money I'm talking about. And it's hard. And it was darn hard to justify in my personal budget. I get it. I am right there with you. This is what I wrote my editorial about last week. I'm right there with you. Okay? And that's the difficult decision that means that the difficult decision isn't about test scores. The difficult decision isn't about kids marching in downtown. The difficult decision is looking at your budget and going, I am paying more for everything. Can I squeeze another or not? And so I have great sympathy for you. Those persons who are making their decisions on the bond issue along those lines, I have great sympathy for you. And you know what? That's a really brass tacks decision that's based on your family. And that's a great place to put it. That's a great place to make that decision. So those of you who haven't made that decision and are looking at it through those terms, I do not envy you. I wish you well as we're coming up on the end of this thing. It's March 3rd. March 3rd is the vote date, and the polls are open now. Yeah. So today's Wednesday. Yesterday, in open session, Rick was predicting somewhere around a 30% voter turnout.
Well, that's pretty good.
For a bond issue in a special election, that's very good,
That's
actually.
pretty good, especially when it's special election. It's not when normally elections are held. I mean, and there's some argument back and forth about whether it should or shouldn't be on an off time. I think it should, because I think that oftentimes so many things get wrapped up in politics that really shouldn't be political. I mean, it can't all be politics all the time. I mean, I try to refrain from, I in the past, I was very active with commenting on social media and doing all these things. And now I've just kind of backed away from that.
Let me put this into the conversation, because you know what? I sat through all those meetings. And there were some members of our Board of Education who wanted it on the November ballots. But there just wasn't time. Their reason for wanting it on the November ballots had absolutely nothing to do with voter turnout. And everything to do with expense. Because it's more expensive to do it this way.
I tell you, Chad, I don't know.
So they were trying to be fiscally responsible. And that just wasn't working, because your next opportunity is several months away. And if we're going to do this, we need to do this, and we need to get it done.
I look at it this way, and I really hope people are listening. With the things that the school is wanting to do with the money, if this bond passes, I can't imagine the potential disaster of what may unfold or what we're going to do if it doesn't pass.
Well, I'm sure that Fred and others will be able to come up with some kind of a plan, but it isn't going to be pretty. It's just not. I think, and what I wish is that, and I wish this of every bond issue, I wish the debates would center around what it is the school wants to do with the money. I wish it would center around whether or not people believe or will support installing new air conditioning. Do you support or believe that we need a new storm shelter? Do you support or believe that we need to renovate the pool, or do we shut it down and we start taking our phys ed classes to the Y? Seriously cutting into class time. I mean, these are the things that they're doing. Do you believe that we should replace the slate roof over at Cooper Early Ed Center that was installed in about 1937 or 8? Do you believe, can you support
storm shelters?
Just pick one. Yeah.
Locks.
Improving the storm
doors.
shelter at Cooper, where there's literally water running across the floor every day. So, do you believe that we need to do this? Can you support doing that? That's where this conversation needs to be. But we continually go sniffing after the red herring. Well, test scores are... Oh, by the way, you don't have test scores over at Cooper to be referencing. And the kids walked out of school on Monday. Buddy, if you had any idea the reasons I've had kids in intake for leaving school.
Well, don't give me more reason, Chad, to throw out there.
Seriously. Seriously.
Yeah. And let's come down to parents. Okay, so we are at the end of the program. We didn't cover anything national topics this week. We covered two main topics. I guess Chad and I wanted to rest here. That's just kind of what happened. So it is what it is. Make sure and go vote. Make sure that hopefully you gain something from some of our conversation today, because I think many people are having these conversations. But we will save some of these national topics that we planned on covering, because I think they all kind of mesh together. And Chad, I want to give you the lad's word before I take mine.
Don't call me for an opinion on the State of the Union speech, because I was spending my time at the City Commission, which is something we did not talk about today, and boy, is there a lot. There is a lot there.
There's almost people ask for this program to be longer, and maybe it can in the future, but we'll see what we can do.
So I would just say, read my story from the City Commission. It's online already. And if you haven't followed me on Facebook, that was the first place that I posted information. And I'm hoping the third time is a charm for our City Commission, and we finally now have fireworks rules for 2026.
Very good. Very good. Just want to say this. Today marks the 10-year anniversary, for lack of a better word, of the XL shooting. And
anniversary is the correct word, as not all anniversaries are happy.
Yeah. And I worked there during that time. I experienced the fallout of that personally. We're still thinking about the lives that were lost and those that were impacted forever through that day. There's, when you think about tragedy and some of the things that an individual or individuals may choose to do that impacts so many people's lives, also focus on, or choose to focus on, the good, if there's even a shred that you can think of, the good that happened to come out of that situation, no matter how small. We're thinking of all of you. Have a good one, everybody.